Good morning, everyone. I'm going to pretend I'm a real politician now and be really formal. Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Designate Wilson, sorry. His Worship, Councillor Clinton Mead, the Mayor of Campbelltown. Councillor Pettit, who's a councillor on the Ku-ring-gai Council, delegates, LDP delegates and visitors, welcome to you all. Well, as Peter said, what a difference an election makes. On September the 6th last year, we were feather dusters. There was no point putting out a press release. We were just one of 54 parties, and if we weren't ignored, we were ridiculed. The Daily Telegraph ran a big article with a picture of me and Peter with one of his guns, warning everyone against voting for us by mistake. 2 days later, on the 8th of September, we were the cock of the walk. Every media outlet in the country wanted a piece of me. And of course, all they wanted to talk about was guns. The Telegraph had not only given us fantastic publicity, far more than being first on the ballot paper, it had defined us. Fortunately, we had a fairly strong feeling that we would win somewhere, although I have to confess I wasn't sure that it was going to be New South Wales. But until Anthony Green's calculator came out, I wasn't too confident about where it would be. Once the calculator came out, I thought, okay, this is fairly likely that it might be New South Wales. So we discussed what we would say and how we would present ourselves to the media if and when we won. And so when I said I will never vote for a reduction in liberty or an increase in taxes, it wasn't a thought bubble. In fact, nothing I've said in the many, many interviews I've done since the 7th of September were thought bubbles, where one of the pleasures of being a party based on principle is that we've got well-developed policies with a coherent, consistent philosophy that underpins them. That's allowed me to speak sensibly on quite a range of issues, and for the more perceptive members of the media, they can even guess what our positions are on many issues. It's a nice place to be in. And all that preparation, all that policy development, all that thinking about what do we stand for has finally come and paid off in spades. My election caused quite a ripple around Australia and even got a bit of attention internationally. For the first time, there was an avowedly libertarian political party in the Australian Parliament. I hesitate to use the word openly libertarian because that phrase has been grabbed by the gays, but you know, it could apply, an openly libertarian person. There've been libertarians in other parties who've been elected, Liberal and I think perhaps vaguely even the Labor Party, but they can't speak their minds. Once outside the party room, they are bound by party discipline, otherwise they lose their endorsement, and at best you get them saying something in their last 6 months before they leave Parliament when they have got nothing to lose. So my election as a Libertarian and representing a Libertarian party is a first. The tone after I was elected was set by the front page of The Spectator, which had a caricature of me carrying a gun, smoking a joint, tearing up the carbon tax with the headline, "Free at last, mate." It's worth looking at if you have. I actually have a signed copy of it by the artist. It's going to hang on my wall in Parliament House. And since then, I've managed to maintain a certain amount of media attention through my writing, and it takes a lot of effort. But I want to set our own agenda. I want to be sure that we're ahead of the game, not playing catch up. It's also much harder to misquote and misrepresent us if we're making the story. And we know from past history that there is a strong tendency to misquote and misrepresent us. So our task now is to convert my election into much broader electoral success. We need to win more Senate seats as well as seats in state parliament. In fact, for the Senate, not that we have any policy compatibility much with the Greens, but their model of one senator per state per election is is a worthwhile target to aim for. But for those of us who believe in small government, this has to be just the beginning. My job for the next 6 years is to ensure I'm just the first of many. I've never been a parliamentarian before, or a staffer, which is a bit uncommon. The Liberal and Labor Party MPs usually have been around parliaments of some description or other before they get elected. So I'm on a fairly steep learning curve. The Senate staff sent me a box of books and other literature that was almost too heavy to carry, and so I'm sort of pretending to read all that. They organised an orientation day for us in November, which we jokingly referred to as Senator Preschool. So I know a bit more than I did on the 7th of September. But there are some things that I didn't need teaching. As I'm sure you know, there are 76 members of the Senate. Currently 40 of these are Labor and the Greens, which means the government can't get its legislation through. After July, probably irrespective of what happens in WA, Labor and the Greens will have 35 votes and the Coalition 33. So if the government gets 6 out of 8 crossbenchers to vote in favour of its legislation, it will get it through. Now the government is supremely confident that that will happen. I heard Greg Hunt, the Environment Minister, speaking on Sky just in the last week, stating with absolute confidence that the new Senate will pass its legislation repealing the carbon tax. I thought that was quite interesting. I will vote to repeal it, but I've never met Greg Hunt in my life. I've never spoken to him on the phone. I'm not sure I'd know him if I met him anywhere. I've not had a single discussion about that with anyone from the government. I had a chat with Senator Erica Betts, who's the leader of the government in the Senate, but it didn't cover that sort of thing at all. So I am interested that the government is so confident that the new Senate will vote for its legislation in the numbers that it expects. I'll be officially a senator on 1st of July, and my staff can't start before then either. The Senate will the Senate staff will hold a 2-day orientation program for new senators in the first week, and the Senate will sit in the second and third week when all this block legislation is due to come up. You'll understand why I'm a little cautious as to how this is going to play out. The government is stating in public that its legislation will get through. It needs 6 out of 8 senators to vote for it, hasn't spoken to us about it, and we will be told how we have our 2-day orientation in the first week of July. The second and third week of July, they'll be asking us all to vote for their legislation. It's going to be an interesting time. There's something else that concerns me as well. I mean, I think I'll cope fine with that, but I have met some of the other senators, and I'm not sure that I can speak for them all. But there's something else that concerns me. There are persistent stories that the Liberal Party is determined to amend the Electoral Act so we can't use the word Liberal in our name. If they got the support of Labor to get rid of the DLP as well, they'd have the numbers to do it. This is something that strikes me that belongs in the Vladimir Putin school of democracy. Before the election, you tip off your friends in the biggest newspaper in Australia that a party with a similar name is about to steal your votes. The newspaper does a huge expose warning the public. Instead of staying away, the public likes what they hear and votes for us in bigger numbers than in any other states than we would have had. And we also had very early positions in the other states on the ballot paper as well. It's not a donkey vote factor. And then after all that, they then claim it was all due to voter confusion anyway and the law should be changed. Let me be quite clear about this. Things are coming at me. Let me be very clear about this. The government can look forward to 3 years of obstruction in the Senate from me if it messes with our name. We've had it for 12 years now, and we like it. And if they've only just decided it can't be accepted, I have news for them. If you want us to vote for your legislation, get used to our name. We like it and it's not negotiable. And along the same lines, there's apparently a determination on the part of the government to amend the voting system in the Senate to make it more difficult to either register new parties or for them to get elected. Again, I say to them, hello, which part of 6 out of 8 don't you understand? Do you seriously think you can expect our support if you're plotting to put us out of business? Maybe they should hire themselves out to Putin. I don't think even he's tried that one. On a positive note, I've met Senator-elect Bob Day from Family First, and we have a lot in common. He's a good guy, and I expect he and I will be working very closely together. I've met Ricky Muir from the Motoring Enthusiast Party. He's a four-wheel driver, likes modified cars, has a young family, and as far as I can tell, he's a regular nice guy. I look forward to working with him too. I've spoken to all the others, but I can't say at this stage how soon, at this early stage, how things will go. They all have their own ideas and priorities, which the government will have to listen to if it wants their support. At a practical level, senators have 5 or 6 staff, they have an electoral office, and I have some ideas about who they might be and where they might be. We're honoured to have Commissioner-designate Tim Wilson as our keynote speaker at this year's National Conference. Tim was appointed by the Abbott government as Australia's next Human Rights Commissioner. I understand he is to be known as the Freedom Commissioner. He's not officially on the payroll yet, and I think this is his first public address in his new role. He may set me right on that. Not that Tim lacks credentials when it comes to standing up for human rights. For the past 7 years, he was with the Institute of Public Affairs in Melbourne, where he was Director of Climate Change Policy and the Intellectual Property and Free Trade Unit. Whenever the subject of climate change policy, health, intellectual property or international trade came up, Tim's voice was invariably heard. More than that, Tim was a consistent, passionate supporter of free markets and individual liberty. He's had plenty to say about industry assistance, public broadcasting, renewable energy targets, tobacco packaging, industrial relations policy, health insurance, bikie laws and gay marriage. And all of it, from the perspective of the Liberal Democrats, is terrific. In the dark days of the global warming debate, when it was almost a crime to question the IPCC, Tim sometimes seemed to be the only voice of reason and common sense. I well remember his reports after the failure of the 2009 Copenhagen conference, when he, almost alone, said it signalled the end of attempts to commit global economic suicide. He was right too. He's been a regular on the media, the ABC's Q&A, Drum, News Breakfast, Bolt Report, Nation, Contrarian and so forth. I personally admire his courage when he does battles with panels of left-wing lovies whose only point of difference is how condescending they can be to Tim. He's regularly authored articles in the print media, including the Australian, Wall Street Journal and the Financial Review. He's been a regular on a number of radio programs. Obviously had a career before he went to the IPA. He's academically well qualified. And as far as I can tell, his only weakness is that up to the time he was appointed a commissioner, he was a member of the Tax and Spend Populist Party, which you'll recognise as the Liberal Party, but just proves none of us is perfect. Tim's a true champion of freedom, and we are absolutely delighted he's here today. Please make him welcome.